What's up, guys? Max here for slurv.com to bring you the GPP plays for Monday, May 23rd. As always, remember today's Monday, so we're going to have all three expert videos as usual, plus another live chat at 5 o'clock Eastern. So be there or be square. So let's jump into the games right away. There's a little bit of a difference between DraftKings and FanDuel, where FanDuel is going to have the night game of the doubleheader between Cleveland and White Sox, and DraftKings is ignoring the doubleheader. So there's one extra game on FanDuel today. As far as pitching, it's an interesting pitching slate with few low-priced options, at least on DraftKings. We have to see if any value in bats will open up, but right now it's very hard to stack two high-priced arms. So the first guy I want to talk about is Kershaw. He's having a historic season with only 88 strikeouts and only 4 walks, which is pretty sick. If Cueto Love against San Diego is going to take away ownership from Kershaw, that would be amazing, and I am going to be all over Kershaw in that case. He's usually highly owned himself, but I don't think you can roster both at DraftKings and have any sort of doable lineup. So I think either Cueto or Kershaw ownership will be down today from their usual 50%-ish levels. So I got to figure out which one that is and target that pitcher. Right now, I think it's Kershaw that I am going to target. Let's see. So Cueto, the only time I played this guy all year was against Cincinnati, which coincidentally was his worst game of the year. So yeah, I never get this guy right. He has pitched 2 complete games versus San Diego with 19 strikeouts so far. He's only 1.5K cheaper than Kershaw, however, and Kershaw is in a great matchup himself against Cincinnati. San Diego's already seen Cueto twice, so hopefully today will be the day that they will be able to figure him out. Does it mean he won't get a complete game? I mean, no, of course not. But I do consider Kershaw's ceiling to be way, way higher than Cueto's in any given matchup. So I think the 1.5K difference is not enough to deter me away from Kershaw and onto Cueto. On DraftKings, Velasquez and Kennedy are way too expensive, which I think will mean low ownership due to the fact that everybody's going to have either Cueto or Kershaw. I don't love Velasquez's matchup against Detroit. He has been just as good against lefties as righties this year, but last year righties hit him quite a bit better. Detroit is an offense that's on fire, and they've been mashing everybody lately, even Archer yesterday. So they can definitely hit hard-throwing right-handers pretty well. Anyway, rather than target Velasquez, I think I would target the Detroit offense instead as a cheap stack. I'm going to talk about them later on when I talk about stacks, but DraftKings dynamic pricing reduced the Detroit-priced players quite a bit, so I think that's a good spot to look at. Kennedy is one of my favorite pitchers on FanDuel, where he's only 8,400 in his matchup against Minnesota tonight, but on DraftKings he's 10,400, which I think is just too expensive for his upside. As of right now, I will probably use one of Gio or Hill as my SP2 in DraftKings GPPs. And I like Gio on FanDuel as well. I think Hill is a little bit too priced up there in a matchup where he might not get the win. Hill is facing a Mariners offense that was targeted heavily all weekend, and although they scored some runs, they never really went off and won anybody at GPP at that ownership. I expect Seattle to not be so good against lefties this year, the rest of the year. They've been really good thus far, but really they only have Cruz Gutierrez and Dejo Hill who really mash lefties. Cano has been really good against lefties this year, but wasn't before in his career, and the same with Seager. I do think that Hill has good GPP upside due to his strikeout upside today, but I think that he's a little bit too risky for any sort of cash game exposure. Gio is quite a bit safer, in my opinion, than Hill, and he carries some upside as well. There's inherent risk in playing the Mets, of course, as they do have a good hitting lineup. But in the lineups that they've rolled out against Gio and other left-handers so far this year have been pretty laughable. So I do think that Gio is in a good spot. He also has faced the Mets a couple times so far this year, so they may be able to make some adjustments against him. Let's see. The other two guys I want to talk about are Moore and Pomeranz. But Moore has been god awful lately, and I actually like a Miami stack against him more. But Miami's so priced up on DraftKings and even on FanDuel that I just don't think it makes any sense. Moore, however, has a really cheap price tag on DraftKings, so I think we could look to him in GPPs to capture some upside. Um, Pomeranz has done quite a quite a bit better against everyone other than San Diego this year. I mean, San Francisco. Really, we don't like to target any pitchers against San Francisco as they just don't strike out that much, but they strike out less against righties than they do against lefties, which puts Palm in play somewhat today. Although his price is still up from the fact that he's striking out a lot more batters this year and isn't giving up that many runs. So I think I like Gio and Hill a little bit better than Palm. I expect all of the guys to be a lot lower owned than they normally would be, due to their pricing still being somewhat up. Although I think if people are going to go Kershaw and Cueto on DraftKings, they're probably going to go with either Gio or Hill as their SP2. Yeah, which I guess means their ownership will be up. I'm thinking it through it here along with you guys. I mean, it's early in the morning here, so I have no idea what kind of bats are going to be out there for us to target to concentrate on. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it for starting pitching for today. Moving on to today's stacks. I'm going to concentrate on cheaper stacks today as I want to play some expensive pitchers. But guys on Miami and guys on Washington are priced up for good reason. They're in good matchups and should have a good upside today. So the first stack that jumps out at me, I already kind of talked about them, are Detroit righties against Velasquez. As I said, Detroit has been on fire lately, and Velasquez was a reverse splits guy before this year. Last year, his WOBA against the righties was 349, which wasn't good at all. So yeah, target Detroit guys. I wouldn't target them everywhere, but I'm definitely going to have at least one Detroit stack. On the other side, we have Philly bats that are always cheap and for good reason. They really don't have much upside other than Herrera and Franco. However, today they're facing Pelfrey, who got 9 and 13 DK points respectively in those last two games, and those were his two highest outputs of the year. So he is not very good. Phillies are very cheap, like I said, and they're firmly in play here, in my opinion. Like I said before, Texas and the Angels are priced up today due to the fact that they're playing in Texas. Great Harris Park, good weather, and they're facing two pitchers who are not very good. If you're going to be paying down for pitching, I highly suggest getting some Texas and Angel bats in there. I think they're all in good spots. I think I will still have a fair bit of guys like CJ Crone and Nomar Mazara, as they're pretty cheap on both DraftKings and FanDuel and have good matchups. Next, I want to talk about Tampa against Chen. We don't like to stack against Chen, really. He never really blows up completely. But Tampa is awesome against lefties. And other than Longoria, who's over 4K, they're all under 4K on DraftKings. I like guys like Pierce, Beckham, Matuk is back, and he mashes lefties, and Geyer also. I'm not sure if they're all going to be in the lineup, but check on that later and target their upside today. I think Royals have a nice upside for their price against Alaska. Moose is back, so I think he's in a good spot, and playing him after an injury is always good because people might not be aware that he is back. So he was mashing it also before he went out on the DL. So I think they're gonna go they're going to go under own today, even though I really like their matchup against Nolasco. Let's see. Before I talked about Seattle, I think they're going to go under the radar today. I do like Gutierrez and Daeho Hill a lot. Daeho Hill might be one of my favorite players to target against left-handed pitching of all types, and he's just dirt cheap on both sides. Last but not least, I give you the Dodgers against Finnegan today. The Dodgers against the lefty means that it's Kike Hernandez day, and pairing him with Howie Kendrick and Trace Thompson leads to a really nice high upside mini stack. I think that's about all I wanted to talk about today. Um, as always, we have our chat later on, and I will be able to give you much more specific plays due to the fact that we're going to have lineups out and we're going to know if we're going to be able to pay up for really expensive pitching today. And that's kind of like my thing with DraftKings GPPs when there's two really high priced pitchers. I like to pair them together. It really worked out well with Noah and Scherzer yesterday. I was able to pair them with a bunch of Texas bats who were super cheap against Keuchel. Keuchel not being the same pitcher this year. So I was able to capture a lot of upside in pitching and hitting. And I think that's what I'm going to try to do again today with guys with Detroit, Philadelphia, and Tampa Bay. All right, guys. So chat tonight, then lineup building time in the chat room. So I will see you all later on. Peace.